Welcome. My name is Chris Wildeboer, and welcome to the Creating Momentum with Integration webinar. This webinar is about creating momentum, and it is about finding the way through integration to get that momentum. Integration. This is a confession story. Here we go. February this year, I came up with this grand idea to host some webinars. I'd never done webinars before, so this was a big idea for me. And what I did is I started with what I knew. I knew I had content, I knew I had stories, and I knew I had a laptop. That was a good place to start. Seemed like it covered the basics. And then I realized that I needed to learn a little bit more about running webinars, particularly what software would I maybe need. So I went and did some research and found the varying options that are available for running webinars. And I chose Zoom, which is what we're on here today. And that was great. I learned all this new information around Zoom, and I got signed up and went through all of that and found out loads of information. So the research that I did allowed me to then have the things that I started with, plus all this new research. And then I needed to learn what needed to be done for a webinar. Now, you see, we think that the webinar is just all about the content and the stories and having a camera and being able to stand in front of it and produce content. Nope. What I learned is that there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes. The processes and steps that need to be put in place to ensure that when you sign up to this webinar, you get an email a week before, an hour before, those sorts of things. And you know, I needed to decide what that email would say and need to make sure that that template was set up so that every time I ran a webinar, there was some consistency in what information I was sharing. So I had to learn things that I didn't know I'd need to know as well. So February was a big month. Oh, there was a lot of new going on. So my first webinar went quite well. My second webinar, look, I was really happy with the content and I was pretty okay with the stories mostly. And I finished that second webinar with a great call to action. And I got to the end and I pressed the stop record button. And I stepped away from the screen. I won't do that now, but I did step away from the screen. And I started mumbling to myself because, like I just indicated, there was a story that I just wasn't quite happy with. And I'm in a room here and I'm kind of on my own. So sometimes I talk to myself. And I was talking to myself about, I didn't quite get that story right. And I missed the point that I really wanted to make here. And I was saying these things out loud to myself. And admittedly, I was actually beating myself up a bit about what I'd missed saying and maybe the message I hadn't quite gotten through to people. Then my phone rang. I looked at the phone and I went, I'm not answering it. And then I saw who it was, and it was somebody that had been on the call. I went, no. I just don't have time for that. I mean, I was kind of just in my own little self-pity, oh my God, I've mucked it up space. So I didn't answer it, but they did leave a message. So I went, all right, I can at least listen to a voicemail. I wonder what they're going to say. So I listened to the voicemail. And it happened. The realization, the penny dropped. They said, you might have stopped recording, but you're still streaming. I'm online. I don't know who else is online, but we can hear what it is you're saying. Oh my goodness. Devastation comes to mind. Embarrassment. Oh, I just was overwhelmed with, so I quickly just came over to the laptop and I turned it all off and I closed the laptop lid. It's like, I don't know what I did. I don't know what that was. And for the next few days, I kind of didn't want to face it. I felt like I'd made the biggest mistake ever, and I just didn't know what to do to move forward in that. And so I had to take a deep breath though, because a few weeks later, I had another webinar scheduled. So I really had to get my act together and just get on with it. So I went back to my original approach that I had before in February, before I started these webinars. So I needed to look at what it is that I already had. What did I already know? Well, now I knew a little bit more. So I knew I had my content and my stories. Well, they might have been refined a little. And I knew I had my laptop and I knew I had Zoom now, but now I had to do some research. Because what I didn't know was I'd obviously experienced that you can stop recording a webinar, but I did not know that that didn't automatically mean you stop streaming. So I had to research that difference and understand what I needed to do to ensure that I could make both the recording and the streaming stop when I wanted it to. In that process, I discovered a few other new things, like how I could edit the video after the fact, and that I would also get an audio as a separate file. And there was all these other new things that I then discovered as a result. My point of this story is that if we make a mistake, it's really, really important to go back and integrate that mistake, even if it's even if it feels really bad and it paralyzes you like it did for me for 2 days. I needed to kind of take that mistake and make it something that I could learn from. So I did that, and every other webinar has gone much more smoothly since then. So I'm actually very grateful for making that error, because it did allow me to grow. It allowed me to do better. It allowed me to do more for the audience. And this is what integration is. It's about taking all of our experiences, bringing them all together, good or bad, doesn't matter. They're all part of your experience, they're all part of your lessons, and they're all part of what you need to learn. And allowing them to integrate together so that then you can easily move forward in that momentum. Now, look, I know that that can be easier said than done. I can tell you at that second webinar, it did not feel easy to have to try and integrate that mistake. But I did take that deep breath and I did integrate it. So what I started with was I looked at where my energy was, and I needed to get myself back to ground zero. I needed to kind of get myself back into where my energy was most comfortable, because it had kind of been taken out of its comfort zone. And this is the process that I followed. And I wanted to share this with you because this level of integration and being able to adapt things into, or adapt the mistakes into our experience and let them help us grow is really, really important. And we need to start at this very important point. Who are you? So this question, when we first ask ourselves this question, it's pretty easy to answer. We usually define ourselves by what job we have, what our relationship status is, those sorts of things. We might define ourselves as the third child in relation to our siblings. We kind of define who we are by the environment that we live in. But I want to go a little bit underneath that. I want to take you on this little bit of a discovery just underneath that idea. And to do that, we have to go a little deeper. The first thing I want to look at is these 4 energies that make up all of us. However, each one of these you will probably relate to more than the others. This is my energy profiling system, and I'm excited to be sharing this with you. So the first energy profile that I want to look at is discovery. So a discovery energy is all about new ideas and taking action and solving problems and speaking quickly and very active and fast moving. And people that enjoy discovery energy, they tend to want to do things really quickly, and they want to expand the world around them. They want to make sure that they bring in all these other 10,000 ideas to make sure that their world keeps expanding. So that's the discovery energy. The next one to look at is embracing. Now, embracing energy literally embraces people, ideas, organizations. This sort of energy just loves being the cheer squad for any idea or any cause, and they get to, they're just all about the people. They love being around people, they love socializing, they love having conversations with people. There's this constant ability to include everyone, and they just want to embrace. So it's a really lovely energy to be around, and for the people that are that energy, they just love to be around people pretty much 100% of the time. The third one in this is essentials. This type of energy is a little bit more grounded. It's a little bit more taking a bit more time, put here sensing the need. Tends to, sort of energy will speak a little slower, be processing a bit more information, certainly likes the detail. They don't always take action very quickly. They tend to sit and wait for the right timing to be able to take that action. So the essential energy is really waiting for what is essentially needed. And the fourth one that I want to talk about is perceptive. Perceptive energies have this way of just knowing what direction needs to be taken. So they tend to have an understanding of the pathway that needs to be followed, the steps that need to be taken to get to the end result. They do this by being a little bit more internal. They also like a little bit of detail, and they're really, really good at following through on things and making sure something makes it to its end. But every single one of us, no matter what energy we sit in, we all have a brick wall that we will come across. So going back to my webinar story, my brick wall was the devastation and embarrassment that I felt because I made this one silly mistake, and that everybody got to hear that I was beating myself up. So that was a brick wall for me, because I did not look at that recording of that webinar for 2 days. I could not, it paralyzed me. It was, okay, so that was probably a much thicker brick wall than this one looks to be. And often we get these brick walls and we just don't know the way to get through them or around them. And I want to share with you how each one of those energies, that real core of who you are, can get through your brick wall. So the first energy we started with was discovery. So how does the discovery get past their brick wall? Well, when they come back into themselves and go, okay, so I'm discovery, so what is it that I can do to expand? what they do is that they would look at that brick wall and they would find a way to, they would come up with, well, they'd first come up with 10,000 ideas. And then they would find multiple ideas to get them either around the brick wall, over the brick wall, under the brick wall, through the brick wall. They will come up with every single possible concept to get to the other side of that brick wall, because they're all about action. So they're going to look at every possible option. The embracing energy, well, when they feel like they've got a brick wall, they usually turn to others. And if they gather enough people around them, what will happen is that someone will be able to lead them around that brick wall. But they will be embraced by so many people, they'll just feel really comfortable and almost won't realize that that brick wall is there anymore, because they're coming back to being surrounded and embraced by others. And then we have the essential energy. How do they get around the brick wall? And I've already described that essential energies kind of would stand back a bit, be a bit more observational. So what they're going to do is they're going to stand back and they're going to realize that they could just walk around the side of that brick wall at the right time. They might be delayed by a few days. Oh, that would be me. But they will eventually find the right time to just go, that is a brick wall, let me put it aside and I will just walk around the other side of it. And then, of course, we have the perceptive energy. How do they get over this brick wall? Well, they come up with about 20 scenarios of how they can get through this brick wall. So they will find many ways to knock that brick wall down so that the brick wall is no longer there and they can just step over the small little rubble that's on the ground. So each one of those energies can really help to get through brick walls. So again, we start with who we are. If we can come down to the core of who we are, any brick wall we can get to the other side of. What we then need to look at, we get over the brick wall. And I'm going to come back to my webinar story. So I got past my meltdown. Let's call it a meltdown. I froze. Once I got past that and I took that deep breath, I actually had to bring in some collaboration. My husband's a bit techie, so I actually tapped him on the shoulder and said, I really need some help with this. I need to understand the difference of these things and what I did wrong and how I could do it better. And can you help me with the research of what other information I'm going to need on this? And so by collaborating with someone else, I was able to find some answers. I mean, in a way, I even collaborated better with Zoom because I understood it more, I learned more about it. And we see this in team environments a lot. When we get to know the people on the team and we collaborate well with them, it's because we've gotten to know them and we've done a little bit more research and we've cared a little bit more about their little quirks, a bit like Zoom had some quirks that I did not know about. But as soon as we take the time to collaborate and find out more, then everything starts to be much easier and we can move forward. So as much as that is true, and it's important that we have others around us and even software packages to investigate more about, there's something that we also need to look internally around collaboration. And that means we need to start to collaborate between different parts of us. So I'm going to touch back on this webinar story. My emotional being had gone completely, it's just gone. It was so heightened, my buckets were full, I didn't want to pay any attention to any of that emotion because it was all too hard. And my mental space Well, the number of scenarios that I was running through my head was ridiculous. I was worried about what people thought. I was worried about how the webinar came across. Oh my goodness, my brain just would not stop. I didn't sleep well for the 2 days. It just would not stop. So my emotions and my mental part of me were not collaborating particularly well. And then I looked at, what was the purpose of the webinar? Why was I doing it? And that was the thing that allowed me to bring those emotions and that mind together. So I was able to collaborate those 3 areas to really allow myself to get out of that frozen spot and to do that more research so that I could ask for help. So when we look at collaboration, we often think that it is this team environment and we need to get to know others first. What I find is really key is when we look at ourselves first, understand what we need to have collaborated within ourselves to then be able to step into collaboration of research and finding out more information. To wrap this up a little bit, one of the things I love to share is an organisation that I have been a business member of for the last 8 years, and it's an organisation called B1G1. Now, it is officially an organisation, but as a business member, I love to call it a movement. And the reason is that B1G1 allows business owners, micro and large, to contribute to projects around the world. So I have, over the last 8 years, been able to create 1.8 million impacts around the world through giving clean water, solar panels, assistance with business tools, microloans. There's a number of projects that I support. So when it came to this webinar, I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to give through B1G1, but I wanted to create a connection to a project that meant something, that was a bit more special. So when I got on the B1G1 website, I had a look through the categories and there was one called life enhancement. I went, that's it. This is what I'm doing with the webinars. I want to enhance your life. So I thought, all right, what's in this life enhancement that would maybe be a good match? And I found that I could give vitamin supplements to kids in Kenya, which helps prevent blindness. And immediately it made sense to me, because what I want to do with this webinar is I want to open your eyes a little bit. So it made it so logical to me that if we can provide supplements to kids in Kenya to prevent blindness, and that I'm encouraging a little bit more seeing, that just made sense to me. So because you have been on this webinar tonight, as a result, each attendee of you being here, we have been able to give 100 vitamin supplements to kids in Kenya for each attendee. I'm just really excited that I get to do that on your behalf. So thank you for giving me that opportunity to do that through attending this webinar. There's one final thing that I'd like to finish with, and it's a thought that I just thought would be good to wrap this up for you. Pay attention to the situations around you. Life is teaching you about yourself every day. And I really felt like, we have these mistakes and we can let them paralyze us, but really they're just there to teach us something and allow us to grow. And if we can integrate that experience into our energy, then the whole world opens up for us.